like they coached that game like this was some sort of bowl game or something where it doesn't count in the standings.
Oh, the Kansas State decision, totally disagree with, but the Iowa State decision, that's what you do there. I mean, it's a wet surface, playing on a soccer field, and you walk it off at that point by picking up the first down.
Yeah, but if you don't, they come down, they get 3, you go to overtime.
Yeah, but you kick a field goal, you're going to lose the game if they score a touchdown.
But what were the chances they were going to score a touchdown?
Yeah, worst case scenario is a field goal.
I completely disagree. I mean, they got away with it.
Yeah. I did like the play call, though.
Did they?
It's such a good play call.
Didn't the ESPN analytics said?
I don't pay any attention.
It said go. Yeah,
zero attention.
Go. But I'm just telling you, you've got zero confidence in your kicker. And by the way, when you're an Iowa State kicker, you've got to kick in conditions.
Yeah, it's true. You're going to have to do that.
There it is. Time for Unlocked. I am Lance Taylor from the Next Round, along with Brock Huard. I don't even know how to title this guy now. I know he's not unemployed. He's still doing radio. He's tapped out of Fox for a little bit to follow his son Titus, a highly recruited quarterback there in the Denver area. It is always brought to you by MyBookie. Football season is finally here. Whether it's sides, totals, player props, they've got you covered. And right now, the bet back bonus, up to $500. You put $500 in, you bet it on a game, you lose it, they're going to credit you $500 right back. Go to mybookie.ag, code, very important, next round, code next round for the bet back bonus of $500. Brock, welcome in. How is unemployed life?
Oh, it's great. And by the way, I'm a coach, okay? That's how you introduce me from this day forward.
Coach Huard.
Okay?
Okay, Coach. Let's talk some ball,
Huard.
Coach.
Tight end Coach Huard at that, all right? Not even offensive coordinator. I'm working my way up from the ground level. So I'm coaching the tight ends at Dollar Christian. We had a great first win in an absolute freaking torrential biblical monsoon down in Colorado Springs. And good win for Valor. Top 5 team in state. We got some work to do to beat, I think, some of the guys ahead of us, but loving it, Lance, and loving what I'm learning.
Full disclosure, one of my really good friends, fraternity brother Scott Banks, a Fort Payne native, shout out to Alabama, the group, now lives in Denver, and his son plays on one of your rivals, and he's like, Titus is legitimate. How much did he grow over the summer, if he grew over the summer? I guess he is a junior by classification, and he is being recruited by a lot of people, right? I know you don't want to brag too much, but you are a proud pop and coach.
He's a sophomore. Here you go. If you want to know how big he is, I just sent you a picture. This also shows some of the rain that was falling down in Colorado Springs. So Ty's at 28. So Ty's a sophomore. Ty is legitimately almost 6'6" and about 200 pounds now. In a heated battle, Lance, we got a senior QB that's a great leader and a captain of the team, and those two are going at it and competing their butts off and making each other better. And yeah, he started the recruiting process this last summer. He's got a couple offers. We went to a lot of different camps. And the most important thing though, Lance, and we were watching some of the high school football Saturday night after all the great college games, and there were some great, compelling college games. Just watching it and watching some of these real hyped guys and all this attention, I don't know, man. I just want him to be as normal as I possibly can be through this whole process. And I want to build him from the inside out. The school is doing a great job of it. The head coach is a long-time college guy. You football fans down there in Bama, and they're some of the best in the country. You know the name Mike Sanford. He was coordinator at Notre Dame. He was a head coach at Western Kentucky, coordinator at Minnesota. Long family history. His dad was a head coach at UNLV and at Stanford, and just amazing family. And for Titus to get to be taught and coached and equipped by him is going to be a big deal over the next couple of years as well.
Okay, I don't think the rainfall in Ireland on Saturday for Formageddon, it did not rise up to the biblical level. But it did have a factor in this game with both Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson. I think both are really, really good quarterbacks. Didn't necessarily look like that on Saturday. Becht made big plays when they needed to. Let's start because when we were getting you ready and we had a little technical difficulty there early, I heard myself talking about Kansas State and Chris Kleiman, who I love Chris Kleiman. I did not understand on your own 29 with 8 minutes to go and 3 timeouts in your pocket, down 3, why you go for it on a 4th and 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at that moment, he's trusting that group, those decisions. And it's one of the things I'm going to miss about the broadcast booth this season, doing the college games. And for the last 20 years or so, I found myself sitting on the couch thinking, what would I say in this moment? Right. And if Dave Pasch is throwing this question to me and not Dusty Dvorak, who I love. And by the way, I think that's one of the most underrated college broadcasts. I think those guys do a phenomenal job.
I agree.
Worked together a long time. They're one of my favorites to listen to. And on my way, as it had over the years, a number of different times. And now that I'm a coach and you're on the headsets and you're talking, it's like, well, who do we trust the most? And in this situation, what do we trust the most? Do we trust our offense? Do we trust our now third-year quarterback and his dynamic abilities? Or do I trust my defense versus Rocco Becht and all of his experience? So I didn't hate that decision, and I loved the decision of Iowa State. To me, that was a no-brainer. You absolutely go for it. You put 2 plays on Rocco Becht's plate. He can handle all of that. He's got 3 years banked experience. No moment's too big for him. So yeah, it was kind of cool to compare and contrast 2 very meaningful calls that had a huge magnitude in the game. And I think in both cases, if you talk to the play callers and especially the head coaches, it comes down to that word trust an awful lot.
Yeah, before we move off that game, Iowa State 11 wins, played for the conference championship, played for to get an at-large and get in. Arizona State ultimately won that game. Going back to last August/September, I don't think people saw Arizona State as a college football playoff team. Scattaboo got so good, so did Leavitt, and they even did it without Jordan Tyson at the end of the year. So my question to you is, we know teams get a lot better, and the old adage from week 1 to week 2 is where you show all this improvement. When you looked at Iowa State and Kansas State, could you say that maybe you've got a college football playoff contender right there?
Ooh, maybe. Yeah, that feels like a maybe. I think Arizona State, if I'm a preseason Big 12 media voter, I like so much of what they return at the line of scrimmage and just, I don't know, continuity of staff and where that thing is headed and the growth of Kenny Dillingham, frankly, Lance, to see him at week 1 and even midseason and see his maturation and his development as a head coach and the impact and the effect it had on 2 tremendous coordinators in Arroyo and Huard. And then the portal ads and a really confident quarterback that just elevates and oozes that to his team. I'd probably put them, even without playing a game, I'd probably put all that banked experience together and say that's the front runner. I like a lot of pieces they've got there at ASU. I saw Kleiman this summer. Actually, Titus went to the Kansas State football camp. And I love that staff. And Matt Wells, coordinator there, is about as good a human as you're going to find, as is Chris. And he said, man, this first game, it's a little bittersweet because somebody's going to lose. And we know the narrative in the Big 12 anyway. That you don't get, like the ACC, you don't get the benefit of the doubt that the SEC and the Big 10 rightfully gets. And, he knew the magnitude of this one. And being on the losing end of it could really set him back just from a narrative standpoint of how good are you. I also don't think, somewhat because of the conditions, that just the skill, the dynamic ability, the playmaking ability, the size, I don't think to the eye test it was very overwhelming either. In the scale of college football, and I know some of the superpowers we're going to be talking about today. Unlocked
is always brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. They've got every angle covered, from spreads, player props, live bets. And if you're new to MyBookie, use that code NEXTROUND. Any bet you choose, up to $500 fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using that bet back bonus token, the code NEXTROUND at mybookie.ag. So I know it's always hyperbolic when we roll into week 1. Is this the greatest week 1 ever? When we start off, well, first of all, the Friday night games, when you've got Auburn and Baylor, which we will get to in a minute. But when you kick it off 1 versus 2, Texas, Ohio State, then we've got a little Alabama in Tallahassee against Florida State. And then at night, you've got LSU and Clemson in Little Death Valley. Just on paper, can you make the argument best opening weekend we've ever seen?
I think so. Was there a year there? I want to say, Lance, maybe my last year at ESPN, or somewhere around there. I remember a huge game up in Lambeau. I don't think it was 1-2 in any of those scenarios, But there was really, over my last 20 years, I think there's only one other season that I can remember going into it going, wow. And that was more jelly than anything else. Like, gosh, I'm kind of jealous. I wouldn't mind having one of those games. Like we had a good game, but we were still like fifth or sixth in the pecking order. Like, that's a great game. That's a great game. That's a great game. That's a great game. And what an awesome data point. We talk about that on our little high school staff of like every one of these games is just a data point. Well, this isn't just a data point. This is an enormous, enormous data point to shape our conversations, to shape the committee's conversations, the pollsters' conversations, right? We're still in a sport that unfortunately has a committee that decides things in the end. Yeah, and how you start can be a big, big deal in that narrative.
So let's go to that Friday night game. You would have been on the call with your buddy Jason Benetti. Auburn fans, they despise the fact that you're a coach now because RG3 is going to be the color analyst. At least that's what we're hearing on this broadcast. I know you're going to be a big fan of that team. And when they're broadcasting on Friday nights and their games on Saturday. But Baylor was a team, it looked like Dave Aranda, maybe dead man walking. Then they win 6 consecutive games to end the regular season. Sawyer Robertson, nobody talked about the kid, but was playing as well as any quarterback in college football. Now Auburn comes in as a slight 2.5-point favorite at mybookie.ag. Pressure is I don't even know what verbiage to use for Hugh Freeze in year 3. But when you go from 6-7 to 5-7, you're getting paid almost top 15 money. You bring in some people believe a $2 million quarterback in Jackson Arnold. This is a tough spot to start. You've been to Waco before. You've called games there with Sawyer Robertson, with Aranda and what he's got returning, Bryson Washington in that backfield. How difficult of a game is this for the Auburn Tigers?
Yeah, I think Aranda's a hard one, especially to plan for. He is such a cerebral guy. The sport has become, as you mentioned there with the new quarterback in Auburn, so doggone transactional, Lance, that to try to, I pity you. I pity you in these opening weeks. Maybe not for like the big name teams.
3-1 week 0, by the way, 3-1. So.
Well, week 0 is not week 1.
Okay, very,
all right.
Yeah.
So we'll talk next Monday because I remember this just even like last year and the year before, but now it is even that much more like who are you? We have so many new faces. A couple of the key names, a couple of the returning starters, but by and large, you don't know their personnel. There's not been preseason football. There's not been exhibition football. There's not even in high school football, Lance, which we get to do here and having a jamboree and a scrimmage, and you share tape and you have some semblance of knowing how they're going to line up, what they're going to line up, how they're going to play the game. And I think with Aranda, that makes this for that whole crew and for Hugh Freeze in a game you feel like you got to have. You got to have this one to start out the year, right? You just, for all that's gone on, you got to go down there and you got to take care of business because this is not the Art Briles Baylor teams. This is not the RG3 teams. This isn't even Aranda's team or Matt Rule's team, that won 10 games. This is still a very transactional team that people don't know much about. I think it's advantageous. It's at night. You're not playing in the heat that you could play in at times down in Waco in the early part of September, where literally a year ago I melted. 2 years ago, Kyle Whittingham said it was the hottest game he's ever been on any sidelines. So the fact it's a little later in the day and the fact that, they've been practicing in the heat and humidity down there on the plains, I would think this is a game they feel like they got to go get, and they should. Your
colleague, Joel Klatt, a little over an hour ago, said, I just don't know about Jackson Arnold. And then we had to bring up the fact that the offensive line was awful. All the skill was hurt. Top 5 receivers, you've heard it. Top 2 running backs. When you look at their offensive numbers, probably the worst in Oklahoma history. I'm not exaggerating that. They were that bad last year. He was playing with a hand tied behind his back. Did you see any good Jackson Arnold? And what is your expectation, Jackson Arnold going from Norman to now Auburn?
Yeah, the best Jackson Arnold I saw was a couple years ago when he was a true freshman, and those folks down there in Norman and Venables and all of them, Jeff Levy, were like, this kid's, you just wait. This kid is phenomenal. He is just talent, just oozed it. The confidence came out of him. And then, like this position can do, Lance, and like this sport can do, it can humble you really, really fast. And when I was chatting earlier about kind of trying to build my son from the inside out, right? I want him to be so rock solid because if you're ever going to make it at this next level and the transactional nature of it, and this SEC show, the documentary, is showcasing it. I'm sure you've watched all of them and probably on repeat a couple times. I'm not all the way through yet, but again, I turned to my wife on the couch the other night. We were watching, and I'm like, man, to play quarterback in this day and age, it was hard in the 90s, but this is just a whole nother level. And when we get snippets like this and we get documentaries and we get to see what it is like behind the scenes of what these guys carry. It's one thing at the NFL level. It's another thing when you're 18, 19, 20, you've never failed, and you've got to carry the weight of all of this. I hope that Jackson built some thick skin. I hope that was a foundation builder and not a foundation crumbler of a season.
You talk about how difficult the position is, and back to the conversation we were having now, Coach Huard, we were having about your son Titus. How much did it help? Like, you've got one of these football families. Your dad was your high school coach. Your older brother, played at a high level in college, played in the NFL. So you were kind of groomed. Your nephew, Sam, now your son. And the reason I ask this is because Arch Manning, although he's got 3 starts under his belt, will get that first legitimate start on the road in Columbus against Ohio State. And if there is a first family of football, it is the Mannings. They do it right. It's one of the reasons I think he's going to be super successful. I do have question marks just because we haven't seen him at the highest level, but I do think because of the surrounding support staff, he's going to be just fine. But how important is that for a guy like Arch making his first start, but to have all the knowns growing up around him, if that makes any sense at all?
It does. I think what's important here, Lance, and what I feel so strongly about, and in talking to lots of different QB trainers and different people and people I lean into, like the Joel Klatz, I think this is so important. And Jordan Palmer said this on our show last week, talking about Jalen Milroe, in particular, talking about Sam Darnold. He trains both those Seahawk quarterbacks and has for a number of years. And I think I agree with Jordan, because Jordan had an older brother that was pretty good, right? Carson was not a bad NFL player. And much like I had an older brother that played 12 years in the league, and Damon played some great football at the NFL level. And Carson said, I think my co-host Salk asked him, like, hey, is there an attribute? Is there something that just defines success for quarterbacks? And he said this, and I totally co-sign on it. And that is, to play QB today, if he could sprinkle pixie dust on all the guys that he trains, it's not about their lineage. It's not about throwing the ball 80 yards. It's not about running a 4.40. It is about playing the position and not caring what anybody else thinks. And I think that is where an Arch Manning has such a benefit, not because of his dad and his uncles, but because, he kind of got to do it, the right way, got to mature the right way at a smaller school there in New Orleans. And he didn't do the Elite 11. He didn't do the 7-on-7. He didn't do the 5-star. He didn't have a TikTok. He didn't have Instagram. He didn't have all this stuff. He just got to play, and he played 3 sports there in high school. And then even at Texas, and going down there a couple years ago and watching him on the scout team defense when Quinn Ewers was playing, and just to get that maturation process and to grow. And then last year, to get to play a little bit, but not have the whole weight of the world. I mean, the whole process to me has just been awesome. And when I watch Arch and when I listen to him at media days or at press conferences, he does ooze that I'm not defined by what other people think about me. And I think so many, sadly, quarterbacks believe that they've got to do all of that stuff, and they hear so much noise and they can't filter it. But the best of them, Carson Palmer was like that, as Jordan said. You watch the great ones, they really don't play the position and care what other people think about them. And that's a whole lot easier said than done.
So I'm looking at this game at mybookie.ag right now. Ohio State, a home 2.5-point favorite, a total of 48. This is a tough game, much like, the one loss I did have Kansas State, and it came down. I just felt like their personnel was a little bit better. I thought the missing wide receivers from Rocco would be maybe the difference. But it was a really difficult game for me to handicap. Ultimately, I got it wrong, but we'll take the 3-1. But when I look at the side right now, Texas, Ohio State, this is a difficult game to handicap. It's a difficult game to read. Do you have any kind of feel at all for what's going to happen 11 o'clock Central Time in Columbus on Saturday morning?
Well, how many times, Lance, and I don't know if this is good or bad business, and you do this really, really well, and your numbers bear that out. How many times when you just kind of push comes to shove, and when you're just unsettled, you're like, okay, who's the better quarterback? like the ball's going to be in that guy's hands in a close game, meaningful snaps. There's going to be a third down, right? There's going to be a fourth down for Rocco Becht in the end. Like when a push comes to shove, if it's that even, who do you feel better about at the quarterback position? And while Arch does not have 2 dozen starts under his belt, as I said, he's got now his third year there. He had a start last year. He got to play last year. He played in a playoff game as a true freshman. He just he's been seasoned. And I think that would just, for me, tip the scale. His athleticism kind of reminds me, and we'll, again, talk about this over the course of the year. To me, he's almost more Andrew Luck than he is Eli or Peyton from just a body, a throwing mechanics, a cerebral. Obviously, Peyton was very cerebral, as is Eli. But just there's more to me kind of Captain Andrew Luck than there is Peyton or Eli. And I think that dog is just going to come out and bark when it matters the most.
Yeah, I'll bring this up about your colleague Clack because, he mentioned when we were talking about Florida State hosting Alabama, 2:30 kick Central Time, he brought up the fact that Mike Norvell in 5 years, 3 losing seasons. Very odd. You can go undefeated in 2023 in the regular season. You lose your quarterback, then everything falls apart. But to drop down to 2-10 last year was absolutely baffling. A lot of people believe they're going to bounce back in a big way this year. But, man, they get a buzzsaw on this Alabama defense coming to Tallahassee. Any path to victory at all for Thomas Castellanos now going from BC to Florida State and the Seminoles pulling off what would be a pretty massive upset?
I know it's a lot of different names. I know it's different schemes. I know it's different years. And I know the past has nothing to do about this Saturday afternoon. But if I were Norvell, I might pull out that Johnny Manziel tape against Alabama back in the day. And I might say this right here. You're not facing that same Alabama defense, and you're not Johnny Manziel. But you know what, man? You're charismatic, and you make plays with your feet, and you extend things, and you've got a beautiful creativity to your game that I wouldn't be maybe a bad idea to go watch what old Johnny did against Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide a couple times, winning and losing, but just making it a flair for greatness. And he's going to have to be creative, because if he's going to play the game in the pocket or within structure, and everything is within structure, advantage Alabama. Well, if you get him loose and you get him creating and you get him on the move, that is any defensive coordinator's worst nightmare. And Womack will tell you the same thing. Like, I got all the X's and O's on the whiteboard. I should win this play. But that dude's just X factor, and his incredible acceleration just beat us time and time again. To me, that's the only shot they got.
I know you're not going to be shocked to hear this. There are some Alabama fans that they have yet to decide how they feel about Kalen DeBoer. You are very familiar with Kalen DeBoer. And please tell us the importance of Ryan Grubb coming back to this staff, because a lot of people are like Ty Simpson. He's never started the game. It's kind of an unknown. I just believe, much like when Nick Saban was the head coach, you're going to get good quarterback play. I don't care who the starting quarterback is going to be. I believe that with the combination of Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb with Ty Simpson. I just assume he's going to be good with all these really good receivers. But Grubb coming back to Kalen DeBoer, how important is that, and what kind of a difference maker can that be from year 1 to year 2 for DeBoer in Tuscaloosa?
You can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Lance, but I believe the last time we chatted and the last time I got to be on the show, and it wasn't this podcast, this amazing podcast we get to do all season long on Unlocked. This was coming on your show after the news broke that Ryan Grubb was let go and then ultimately hired back. I think it was there that I said to you, good cop, bad cop. And I actually heard from some folks down at Alabama and some people down in the SEC and people that have been around that situation, both there without Ryan Grubb and, been around the situation in Washington when they were tied together. And Kalen, as you know, is just his nature, his being, his humanity, his ethos he can bark and he can get emotional. And we saw that at times last year with referees, but just like he's South Dakota salt of the earth. And Ryan Grubb brings just that piss and vinegar that I think he needs, that the formula works. I watched it in Indianapolis. Tony Dungy, like Kalen DeBoer, just salt of the earth, just an unbelievable, quality, not going to raise his voice, not 2 years, never swore, right? I mean, that's just his makeup, his DNA. And he needed the Tom Moores. He needed guys on that staff. He knew he needed to complement that for the totality of the team. And I mean, have you been out of practice? Did I sell Ryan Grubb short? Does he not have?
We have had so many sound
spark?
bites. I have not been to a practice yet. That would make me get in a car and drive an hour to the Southwest. To Tuscaloosa, so I have not done that. But just the sound bites and people that I have talked to that are very involved with the program, they're saying the exact same thing. So I have used your good cop, bad cop. A lot of people want to know, though, Jam Miller looks like he's going to be back for the Georgia game. This could be a bigger loss if Florida State and Wisconsin are better than Build. But, I go back a couple of years ago, Dylan Johnson was a really good running back. As good as Penix was, as good as those receivers were, playing for a national championship, they had a lot of balance on offense. Do you believe, and I know Seattle Seahawks fans will disagree with this, do you think you will see a balanced offense this year from Ryan Grubb?
Well, tell me about your offensive tackles. I think that was a big part of it. Everybody talked about it. I was just
Pro
chatting with my
Football
older
Focus,
brother.
real quick, and right now you do have one questionable guy with Roberts at guard, but Pro Football Focus, they are calling this going into the season on paper best offensive line in football.
If that's the case, then yes, there's not any question. That was the challenge in Seattle last year, both from a personnel standpoint. They lost their right tackle. They had to play a bunch of guys that were just not NFL quality. I think, if you're going to be an apologist and explain it away, for Ryan Grubb, at UW, you had Roger Rosengarten and Troy Fautanu, two NFL tackles. Rosengarten starting as a rookie in Baltimore, and Fautanu, a first-rounder to Pittsburgh, battled some knee stuff last year. But you give that guy a quality offensive line, and you give him the space of the college game. That, too, was very different last year for Ryan. All of his years in college football, all of the speed and the space, and people don't realize how different those hash marks make the college to the NFL game. It's substantial. It's a very, very different game. So you give him an elite offensive line, you're going to have an elite offense. That's what history has told me, where he has been, the different places he has been, and in particular that year in Washington, where everybody talked about Dylan Johnson and Rome Odunze and Michael Penix and yada, yada, yada. It started up front and started with two elite offensive tackles that really allowed him to have that kind of balance and do what he wants to do.
Do you have a feel for Alabama minus 13.5 on the road against Florida State? This according to mybookie.ag. Again, bet back bonus. Use that code NEXTROUND at mybookie.ag, up to $500, fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using the bet back bonus code NEXTROUND.
Well, I would ask you once again, talk to me about Ty Simpson and what you know. And I'm not talking numbers. I'm not talking his resume, like what people say. If I were to say to you, the greatest trait you can have as a quarterback in college football today is to not care what anybody else thinks.
When the second biggest trait, not turning the football over. We have been told that through the entirety of fall camp, 2 turnovers from Ty Simpson.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I don't think he's taking a lot of chances. I don't think they actually need to. I think it's a lot of underneath, a lot of intermediate stuff that you saw Jalen Milroe, a lot. And just some of the throws that he just didn't have the touch, didn't have the accuracy.
Yeah, no, I'm just a big fan of Ryan Grubb at the college level. I'm a big fan of Kalen DeBoer at the college level. I won't backpedal on what I said to you guys when that move was made. Impossible for one guy to fill the shoes of Nick Saban, but now to get the cavalry back, now to get that duo back in Kalen and in Grubb gives them, I think, a real opportunity. 13.5 feels like a lot on the road in the opener, where you're going to tackle for the first time, where special teams are going to be so critical, where first games are typically so unpredictable. And, I think we saw that this last weekend in week 0. I mean, 2 really tight games. The Stanford-Hawaii game was fun to watch down to the game-winning field goal. Obviously, the game-winning 4th down conversion by Iowa State. That feels like a lot. But if Alabama is going to be a national champion and going to be a significant playoff contender, then I think you cover that down on the road in Tallahassee.
We talked about coaches with pressure when we brought up Hugh Freeze. Brian Kelly, look, he hadn't done a bad job. I would say when you look at it, probably a B, a solid B, but everybody was expecting an A+. including me. I was like, you hire this guy. You won national championships with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. Brian Kelly's going to win a national championship in Baton Rouge. I know they're not easy to come by, but it's been a little bit rocky as far as obviously getting to the next level and getting to a college football playoff. He's 0-4 in these openers, going back to 2 Florida State losses, the UCLA loss, and then last year to USC. Now this is by far the most difficult opener they've had. Going to Clemson, playing one of the best 2 or 3 teams in college football. Both quarterbacks have a lot of experience with Nussmeier and Klubnik. But, man, what a difficult opener for Brian Kelly and LSU. Right now, the Clemson Tigers, 4.5-point favorites, total of 57 at mybookie.ag. Do you have a feel for this game at all?
Yeah, I think if you flip venues and locales, it'd probably be 4.5 the other way, wouldn't it? Or pretty darn close to it.
Probably LSU 3.5. I think Clemson's viewed as just a little bit better.
A little bit, but not much. So where this game is played, it's not at that neutral site down in Atlanta. It's up there in Clemson, where it's going to be ferocious. That defense, I think, is one of Dabo's best that he's had since his national title years. I always love that in openers. It's probably why that Florida State-Bama game, too, you lean into that Bama defense and some of the strength and continuity they have. That feels about right to me. I would think Clemson could and should find a way. And the question there at LSU is, can you play complementary ball? When Ed Orgeron won that national title, when certainly Grass Eater won that national title, it was not the college football of today. All right. It was the recruiting and keeping all those guys and having all that talent, which they could do. There was not the constant threat and strain to keep your guys on campus and the transactional nature that we're seeing. So can a team play complementary football? They've not done it in 3 years consistently at LSU. That's why I would agree with you. It's probably been a B+ kind of grade. Can they play the level of defense that Clemson's going to play in the opener? I don't think they do, especially out on the road.
One more week one game I did want to take a look at. Sunday night, 6:30 Central kick. Notre Dame, a short 2.5-point favorite on the road. Hard Rock against Miami, a total of 50.5. Marcus Freeman has quickly become, everybody's new golden boy. He's the first likable coach ever at Notre Dame, in my opinion. But he's done a hell of a job. And now Mario Cristobal, he's another guy that is facing a lot of pressure, and I think it's fair. I mean, Cam Ward was fantastic. The defense was garbage last year for Miami. If they had a semblance of a defense, they're probably in the college football playoff. Now you get Carson Beck coming in. The last time we saw him on the field, he almost got his arm ripped off against Texas in that SEC championship game. I mean, quarterback advantage to me, I don't know how good C.J. Carr is going to be, is definitely Carson Beck. I don't trust Cristobal against Freeman, but this is a hell of a Sunday night game. Miami, Notre Dame. What do you see with this one?
Oh, gosh. Ara Parseghian wants a word with you. Okay, he was likable back in the day. Do you not remember him?
No, well, Rudy is the only film, and then they win one for the Gipper. So
right, it was Dan Devine. Maybe Dan Devine wasn't likable, but how dare you do that to Ara? That's just know your Notre Dame history.
Okay, you at least give me Marcus Freeman is not only the most likable coach in Notre Dame history, he's one of the most likable coaches in college football right now.
Yeah, you know what you feel? It's funny is you talk about that. I would agree with that. And you felt this last year in their run. You felt it for the last couple of years. Heck, I felt it a decade ago when he was a D coordinator at Cincinnati for Luke Fickell, and I had the Bearcats a couple times there. You felt like, man, guys love to play for him. Guys want to play for him. I think that's what you're speaking to more than any Q rating or right.
Yeah, I don't know about the X's and O's. I really don't. I just watch. He looks like the guy you want in charge of your program. He's very controlled. He says all the right things. Players gravitate the way he's recruiting at a high level. And again, he played for a national championship already.
Yeah, I think Cristobal would tell you that he's a player's coach. I think he tries to recruit to a lot of that. And he's an unbelievable, relentless recruiter. He's been everywhere. He's done that. He did at Oregon and obviously accumulated a bunch of talent down there at Miami in his dream job. But there's just that I've never gotten that vibe that like players want to play for him like they do Marcus Freeman. So is that intangible? Is that measurable? Is there some statistical algorithm of efficiency that we can point to? With so many of these games, Lance, as you're going through them, I'm like, oh, I'm going to take back what I said. This is the greatest opening weekend in college football history. All right?
Hey, and
I'm going to give you a definitive statement right there. I needed to talk through it for 40 minutes with you, going game by game by game by game, storyline by storyline by storyline by storyline, magnitude by magnitude, expectation. It is all there and set up to be an unbelievable Friday through Sunday.
Okay, I lied because I'm going to go back to Thursday. We didn't touch about this Thursday, the 28th. One of these two teams is going to lose. I haven't figured out which one yet, but both are 6.5-point favorites. Boise on the road in Tampa against South Florida. And then Nebraska. I love me some Matt Rule. Nebraska is a 6.5-point favorite against the Bearcats, is why I bring it up. Game's in Arrowhead. It's a neutral site game, but both right at touchdown favorites in Nebraska. And going back to Boise. Which one of those teams loses?
I think both those teams win. I think just the culture, the maturity, the years, that they've kind of built it there. So the two camps, in full disclosure, that we drove to, we went to a few others, but we went, I said to you earlier, to K-State this summer, getting to see that coaching staff and camp, and then we went to Nebraska, and oh my gosh, was Nebraska's the culture? It felt right. I'm not going to say it felt like Tom Osborne. I'm not going to do any of that stuff, even though those teams totally neutered me the two times I played them. I'm not going to go there. But just from a resources, just from a commitment, just from a maturation of culture from year one to year two, the track record speaks for itself. This is the year that it pops. This is the year, in Matt Rule's tenure at Temple and at Baylor, and this is the year it's time to go. And I think that staff feels really good about their people, about their culture. And I don't see them. I think Satterfield's an excellent offensive coordinator and a great play caller. I just don't see them having the physical maturation and bloom of a culture that they have now in Nebraska. And I'd say probably echo the same comments when it comes to a Boise State. And they lose some people now. They don't only lose, Genty. They lose a couple good defensive linemen, but that's a developmental program that knows who they are. I think they find a way down south.
I will continue to overuse the word pressure, but Dylan Raiola, when he took over this program as a true freshman last year, you played the position. So difficult in the Power Four as a true freshman to take the reins from week one and go through an entire season. How different and how much improvement do you expect in year two for Raiola?
Yeah, I kind of just want to see two things, Lance. I want to see, since Patrick cut his hair, did Raiola cut his hair? Or is he kind of waiting to do that?
Yeah.
I think that'll be a little telling to
doppelganger.
Me, again,
it is legit.
What people think. And then number two, it's almost a physical thing with him. Just kind of some twitch and some movement. Be kind of curious to see as they refined him, and I think he's accurate. I think he's a baller. I think he's unbelievably tough. You talk about like DNA of an offensive lineman family and uncle, all of that is there. I just kind of want to and wonder if there's enough elusiveness, right? Just enough twitch, enough just kind of working on the weaknesses, right? And they get exposed as a true freshman. And to think that he could do what he did, and all these true freshmen coming out of high school, stepping into these huge situations and expectations, I think I'd put probably like you did a Brian Kelly grade, like a B plus last year. Kind of curious to see that athleticism and how much work he put into that body.
It is Unlocked with Brock Huard. He's an analyst. He's a former NFL quarterback. He's a coach. But he is our weekly co-host right here on Unlock, which is always brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Again, the season is here. They've got every angle covered, from sides to totals, player props. And if you're new to MyBookie, use that promo code NEXTROUND. Any bet you choose, up to $500, fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, they're going to get you right back when you opt in using the BetBack bonus token, the code NEXTROUND at mybookie.ag. Speaking of quarterbacks, one quarterback, one game. Going into the college football season, I know this will change in 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, but right now, if you could have any quarterback, all rosters equal, which one are you taking?
Whoa. Is it crazy to say Arch Manning?
I think it is, but ultimately at the end of the season, a lot of people believe he is going to be the guy hoisting the Heisman and national championship.
I don't see him as, I don't know, maybe this is fair or unfair. I don't see him like as a first-year starter. I just don't. When you've been incubated down there, and grown by one of the better QB developers in the game, and Steve Sarkisian. I know Nussmeier and I know Sellers and I know kid up at Penn State got all this experience, and you should probably point to Klubnik. I don't love some of his limitations throwing it. So I know that there's all sorts of attention paid to all sorts of other guys. But yeah, man, I'm gonna put my chips on that table right now. I'm not gonna wait and have to project this thing out.
I thought you were gonna go to Mon Williams, but
No, he's good. He's fun. He could run around a little bit, but no, I just, for everything we've talked about, the makeup, the toughness, the incubation, the people around him, you said all things even, but I think those things do matter. And yeah, I'll put my chips on Arch right now.
Okay. Are you willing to roll out your 12-team playoff real quick?
I'm not yet.
Okay.
I am not, Lance.
Okay. That's okay.
I'm not. Okay.
Okay. If you're not, you're not.
No, I think we could do this a little bit by conference, because I think that's frankly what.
How about I walk you through this then, okay? So we will start first. We'll go with our 4 auto bids, and then from the Power 4, then I'll ask you a Group 5, and then you can give me some at-large. But if we're starting first in the ACC, it's obvious, right? Clemson, nobody else.
Yeah, I think they're just kind of head and shoulders. Again, just defensively, when you play defense this way and at the level I think they're going to be capable of doing so, it raises that floor so high. And then with the experience coming back, obviously, at QB, you would think your ceiling could also be very, very high. Hard for anybody, I think, in that conference on paper going in to compete with them.
Okay, so there are some people that believe Miami, Louisville, Georgia Tech kind of sleeper picks. SMU was a team that represented the conference last year. Do you see anybody from the ACC other than Clemson making the college football playoff?
A guy Miller Moss there at Louisville. Georgia Tech did some nice things. They're hard schematically. Cristobal, if he couldn't do it with Cam, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
SMU may be the wild card of wild cards, but no, I can't confidently nor definitively say, yeah, this will be an absolute number 2 for me.
I do think SMU is a really, really good job. They've got great resources, but boy, if Rhett Lashley took them to back-to-back playoffs at SMU, he would be a hot commodity. Big 12, I mean, good luck. Throw a dart. Literally 8-9 teams that could win this conference. We saw the team picked last to win it last year. Ends up representing the Big 12 in Arizona State and really should have beaten Texas. Lost that game in triple overtime. Do you feel good about a team winning this thing?
Like, do I think Arizona State is that much head and shoulders above what we watched this weekend in K-State and Iowa State? No, but I do really like their coordinators. I do really like their quarterback. Levitt did not come to my mind when you asked me that question about one quarterback, one game. He would be on that very, very short list as well. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go ASU there.
Okay, ASU's fair. I would think with all the carnage in the Big 12, it's going to be really difficult for them to get a second team in. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Iowa State gives himself a leg up and an opportunity with that ranked win on the road in Dublin. And Matt Campbell, right? When he builds, and this is a group that a couple years ago, he said point blank, man, this is my best freshman class ever. Well, those freshmen are now juniors and sometimes seniors. So when Matt's got that development in that kind of cycle and that kind of phase, I think they've got a shot.
Okay, do you want to give them an at-large here?
Or not quite yet.
Not yet. Okay, let's go to the Big Ten. Let's first, who do you think wins the conference? I would think it comes down to Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, possibly Michigan. There are some wild cards out there. I mean, we saw it with Indiana last year. Indiana, I think, is back in the mix. Illinois, Iowa, USC, Washington. I mean, there could be some really good sleeper teams in this conference. Nebraska.
Yeah, I think Penn State is going to be poised to do it with Drew Aller. I think he came back to school for a reason. I think they're loaded in lots and lots of different spots. I know James Franklin, we're kind of waiting. I think last year was a step to get into the playoff. I think that there is more continuity, and I love their offensive coordinator, Koldenicki, as much as any coach in all of football. Love that guy. So I'll go on a limb and I'll say Penn State to win it.
Okay, one coach to another. Okay, so right now we've got Clemson, Arizona State, Penn State. What about at large around the Big Ten? Is Ohio State back in?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Is Oregon in?
Gosh, I got to see that quarterback play.
But how good is Will Stein as a play caller? He's one of my favorites, and I've said I just believe. Man. Look, he's had a ton of experience from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel, but man, that system is quarterback friendly.
Super quarterback friendly. Both of those guys make him better too, and I think Will would tell you that because they were erasers. With their movement, their creativity, their ability to extend plays, get in and out of bad plays. Are they going to be able to do that at the level that Dylan and Bo have both done the last couple of years? No. I think that would be unreasonable to think. But, man, they've got a lot of talent. So, at-large, yeah, I'm going to put them as an at-large. I'm going to put Ohio State as an at-large. So, I'll give you those two for sure right now.
Okay. Anybody else jump at-large? Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska, USC, Washington.
They just kind of all feel like 8 or 9. I keep an eye on SC, and again, I'm probably a little biased there with some familial connections. That O-line is the best that Lincoln's going to have had there. That front seven is going to be the best that Lincoln has had there. Maava is explosive. He's had a great training camp. They've got some really good pieces, so I would kind of put SC for me. And I know the commitment they're making resource-wise and what they're doing behind the scenes. I'd probably give an SC a nod over any of those schools.
Okay, well, I'm going to put SC
Washington.
in because we've still got – that's only 3 at-large, and that makes me excited. And I do think this is the best roster he's ever had. Now, whether or not that equates – he just lost so many freaking one-possession games last year. Just absolute killers there at the end. Okay.
And instead, Lance, I'm just saying, I'm going to just stick by what I've always done. They're going to do things and are doing things behind the scenes very, very different.
Oh, good.
Just tell you that.
Well, I mean, I remember you and I were talking about Gucci and Prada 2 years ago when NIL became a thing with Caleb and you kind of described this and you talked about it on Unlocked, always brought to you by mybookie.ag. It was more of a professional attitude as far as what was going on internally, and you. As difficult as it might be in today's NIL, you got to be able to separate those two.
We do. You do. And Jim Bowden's son's done an unbelievable job recruiting there as a GM. That was a huge get and steal from Notre Dame. So, so those three, we'll put those three along with Penn State. So that's 4 from the Big Ten.
Yep. So we've got 4 from the Big Ten. We've got ACC, Big 12. Let's go to the SEC. I mean, most people say it's either – Texas, Georgia, Alabama, or LSU, but Florida's getting some love. I think there are people out there that think South Carolina, Oklahoma can be dark horses. Texas A&M, Auburn, possibly. How do you see the SEC playing out as far as the eventual champion of this conference?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Texas.
Okay.
Again, I can't tell you and say in one breath that Arch Manning would be the QB I'd want to play one game, and then turn around and say, but they're not going to be good enough to get this done. There are going to be some ups and downs. There are going to be some bumps in the road. It's not going to be perfection by any means. Nobody's coming out of there unscathed, but Texas will win it. Georgia and Alabama will be the at-large. And then the 4th at-large is going to be one heck of a dogfight. I think that's about as flip a coin as you want in the Big 12, right, for who you think can win the Big 12. I think you can make a case. Mike Elko plays unbelievable defense. I know their QB is athletic and he's dynamic, and there were some just bursts of huge optimism and opportunity. I don't know if I'd feel the same about, you said Auburn and South Carolina. That feels a little stretchy. Oklahoma, Mateer is fun. He's really, really fun, and they've spent a lot of money, and you and I both love Jim Nagy, the new GM down there in Norman. That feels maybe like a little bit of a stretch as well.
Just give me one. I mean, LSU, Florida.
Garrett Nussmeier. Okay, out on a limb, I'll say Oklahoma. I don't have the schedule in front of me.
That's okay.
How brutal is
it's pretty brutal.
How brutal is their schedule compared to LSU's schedule?
It's a little more difficult. Both are top 20 in difficulty. I'll circle back to that. So right now we've got 10 teams. I need your Group 5, which is nearly impossible. And then we will close it out with our final at-large team. Do you have a Group 5? Do you feel like Boise with Sire Gaines will be able to pick up where Ashton Jeanty left off?
That's a bit. No, he's not going to be Ashton Jeanty. But they do return, I think, 4/5 of that offensive line, which is a big part of it. You're going to be breaking in a a new play caller. I loved their old timer that did it for so long there, and he played such a role. Love the little feisty QB they got. Oh, give me some other group of 5 possibilities. outside of
Tulane
Boise.
is a possibility with Jake Retzloff taking over there. Memphis is a team that some people will take a look at. Liberty has got a just incredibly easy schedule, but even if they go 12-0, they're not going to have a top 25 win, but there is a chance they go 12-0. Navy with Blake Horvath coming back would be a nice story.
I'm a Spencer Daniels. The coach
Okay.
is coming out, man. I'm a Spencer fan.
Okay.
So we'll go Boise.
Okay,
here.
and then finally our final team. Do you want to go Notre Dame? I completely forgot about Notre Dame, or you want to take another shot at at large?
Let's go Notre Dame.
Okay, so there you go. On the fly, we have got Clemson, Arizona State, Penn State, Texas, Notre Dame, Boise. Your at-larges: Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma. Hell of a college football playoff. We will keep up with it, where we can either congratulate you on being so correct, Coach Huard, or we'll dog you out.
Absolute doofus. What a doofus you are, Oklahoma. Are you kidding me?
What a fun first week of Unlocked with our man Brock Huard. Again, it is always brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. They're paying cash right now. College football in full effect. Week 1 as we head into it. They've got every angle covered, from the spreads, player props, sides, totals, everything at mybookie.ag. And if you're new to MyBookie, use that code NEXTROUND. Any bet you choose up to $500 fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token, code NEXTROUND at mybookie.ag. Friend, always fun. Hopefully better conditions for Titus this week.
Lance, they say life's about trade-offs. And the trade-off of leaving the booth for coaching these kids has been unbelievable. Like, already I've had probably a dozen of these just conversations with these young men. It's just been just life-giving, totally fulfilling. So that's a positive. The other positive is I'm going to be on my couch watching so much more college football than I ever have gotten to do in my life. I feel like at times, many of these conversations we've had over the years, I'm playing catch-up, I'm calling people. Not this time. I'll miss my singular game and some of the cool stories and stuff that comes from that. But now I've got these wide set eyes on so much college football this fall. Can't wait to dig into it with you.
Well, enjoy the weekend. We will talk more NFL next week on Unlocked right here on Double Down Media.